Welcome to Israel Now News. I'm Yochanan El-Rom.
And I'm Erin Viner.
In our top story, the entire U.S. Senate is calling on United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres to take immediate and concrete action to stamp out the world body's anti-Israel agenda. All 100 lawmakers signed a letter stating that even though they disagree on many things as Republicans and Democrats, they are united in their desire to see the UN improve its treatment of the Jewish state. The text stressed that Washington, as both the principal founding member and largest contributor to the organization, has the right to insist on the dissolution of any committees that serve no purpose other than attacking Israel.
Just as Israel celebrated its 69th year of independence, the United Kingdom rejected Palestinian demands that it apologize for the Balfour Declaration. The British government issued that document on November 2, 1917, calling for the establishment of a national home for the Jewish people in the land of Israel. As the 100th anniversary of that date approaches, a Palestinian group has been spearheading anti-British protests. London not only adamantly refused to express regret for its historic support, but conveyed pride for its role in helping to found the modern Jewish nation. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu called the anti-Balfour campaign further proof of the Palestinian rejection of Israel's right to exist as a Jewish state.
North Korea lashed out against Israel after Defense Minister Avigdor Lieberman remarked that increasing friction between Washington and Pyongyang has direct implications for Jerusalem. The Israeli defense chief also condemned the dictatorship's alliances with Iran, Syria, and the Hezbollah terror group. He called leader Kim Jong-un's regime crazy and radical and said its sole objective is to undermine global stability. Pyongyang responded with fury and accused Israel of being the patron state of the U.S. The totalitarian country then declared its right to possess nuclear weapons and pledged its full support for the Palestinians.
The Foreign Ministry in Jerusalem says that plans for U.S. President Donald Trump's very first visit to Israel are now in the advanced stages. The Republican leader is expected to come near the end of this month during his first foreign trip since taking office. It's hoped that he'll arrive in time to participate in the 50th anniversary celebrations for the reunification of Jerusalem that begin the evening of May 23rd. It would be a landmark visit for a number of reasons. No American president has ever come to Israel so early in his term, and it's interesting to remember that the first international leader that he hosted after his inauguration was Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu.
In related news, U.S. President Donald Trump has proclaimed May 2017 as Jewish American Heritage Month. The annual tribute, which began in 2006, highlights the Jewish community's many contributions to the nation. The president said that American Jews have stood in the forefront of the struggles for human freedom, equality, and dignity in every aspect of the country's cultural, spiritual, economic, and civic life. He added that American Jews shine a light of hope to people around the globe and that there is a deep spiritual connection that binds the Jewish people to the United States and its founding principles.
Jerusalem is vehemently denouncing Hamas claims that it has dropped its long-standing commitment to destroy Israel. Israeli officials are stressing that the Islamists have not altered their stance whatsoever and are now only trying to delude the world. The so-called revised policy document was presented in Doha by Hamas leader Khalid Mashal. He simultaneously made it clear that the Palestinian terror group continues to reject Israel's right to exist and that Hamas still advocates an armed Arab struggle against the Jewish state.
Regional tensions remain high between Israel and Syria. According to intelligence sources, 5 airstrikes destroyed Iranian-shipped weapons at a supply base operated by the Hezbollah terror group near the Damascus airport. Israel's intelligence minister, Israel Katz, appeared to confirm involvement in the strikes, saying that the incident completely corresponds with Jerusalem's policy to prevent Tehran's smuggling of advanced weapons to Hezbollah. After the attack, the Israeli military said one of its Patriot anti-aircraft missile batteries intercepted a target over the Golan Heights that local media outlets described as an unmanned drone. This was the second Israeli downing of an airborne target fired by Syria during the past few weeks.
At least 1.2 billion people, which is a fifth of the world's population, lack sufficient access to clean water due to droughts, contamination, or heavy agricultural demands. As the plight reaches epic levels, Israel's water-gen technology firm has come up with a way to almost miraculously extract drinking water right out of thin air. Each one of the Israeli devices is capable of producing about 5 gallons of drinkable water every day. The amazing invention was recently demonstrated at an APAC conference in Washington by Harvard law professor Alan Dershowitz. India and Vietnam have already signed major deals for Israel to provide millions of their thirsty citizens with this precious resource, all extracted from their own air.
Write these words down, because they are the terms of the covenant I have made with you and with Israel.
Tens of thousands of Bible-believing Christians are learning the language of the Bible. Gain a deeper understanding of the Scripture. Discover the hidden meaning of the Bible that has been lost in translation for centuries. Our dedicated staff of teachers are centered in the heart of Jerusalem to help you learn the language that was spoken by our forefathers and prophets. Join the Israel Institute of Biblical Studies online course and learn the language of the Bible today. That concludes the news portion of our show. Stay tuned for Ask the Source with Josh Reinstein.
Hello and welcome to Ask the Source. I'm your host, Josh Reinstein, and we're here in a beautiful day on our rooftop studio in Jerusalem. My guest today is Jonathan Lipnick. He's the Dean of Holy Land Studies at the Israel Institute for Biblical Studies. Jonathan, thank you for being on the show.
Thank you.
Tell our viewers a little bit about what is the Israel Institute for Biblical Studies.
The Israel Institute for Biblical Studies is the premier online educational program for Israel studies, Biblical Hebrew, and Holy Land Studies. What that means is that from the comfort of your home, you can get in touch with a Hebrew University accredited program that will give you access to the authentic knowledge that Hebrew scholars have had concerning the Bible for centuries.
Well, it's interesting. You teach Hebrew to people at the comfort of their own homes. Why would Bible-believing Christians want to learn Biblical Hebrew?
Well, 3/4 of what Christians call the Bible is actually the Old Testament, or the Hebrew Bible. And all of those books, from Genesis all the way on down to Chronicles, all of those books were originally written in Hebrew. And so when you read the Bible in translation, whether it's in English, in Spanish, in French, or in any of the ancient languages which the Bible was translated to in antiquity, what you're doing is you're removing yourself from the original by 2 or 3 or even 10 degrees of separation. And so I think it behooves any Bible-believing Christian to want to get back to the source. And Hebrew is that source. When you read the Bible in Hebrew, you're going to be hearing the words that the prophets recited in the actual language that they said it in. You're going to be hearing the words that Moses recited. You're going to be hearing the words that Abraham heard told to him by God just as they sounded to him, rather than in a newfangled distortion.
So then give us an example. Give us an example of how, by learning it in Hebrew, it would be different than learning in English, for example.
If we turn to the book of Genesis, chapter 18, a very famous story of the Lord visiting the elderly couple, Abraham and Sarah. And what's promised to Sarah is that she, at the age of 90, will give birth to a child. And her reaction, as you, I'm sure, are aware, is laughter. What ends up happening about a year later is that Sarah gives birth to a son and names him Isaac. And you probably never really considered what the relationship between those two scenes is. But when you read the Bible in Hebrew, what you find is that there's a fascinating wordplay, because the word for laughter in Hebrew is tzchok. The word for Isaac in Hebrew is yitzchak. And so really, the story displays in the original Hebrew that the circle has come to a completion. By laughing, Sarah is demonstrating that Isaac's name is becoming fulfilled. In fact, the name Isaac, or Yitzchak, even contains a bit of wordplay in it, because the sound tzchok sounds a bit like a giggle or a chortle when someone is laughing. And all of that is lost in translation. When you go back to the original Hebrew, you're getting so many more levels of meaning are coming out and sort of smacking you in the face in a way that makes the Bible alive with meaning that you never understood before.
Well, how effective is the program? Can you take someone who has no knowledge of Hebrew and get them literally speaking Hebrew or reading the Bible in Hebrew?
You know, it's an incredibly effective and rapid process. Just by taking part in a 1-hour lesson once a week, after having learned the alphabet, you are immediately thrown into the text of the Hebrew Bible and you can begin to read the words of the Torah, of the prophets, of the writings, right from the get-go. I think what makes our program so effective is that rather than get stuck on grammar and verb conjugations and a heavy linguistic sort of scholarly approach, from the get-go, you are actually reading the Bible and beginning to take apart the text, getting behind the translation in a way that is absolutely awe-inspiring and eye-opening.
Can anyone do it? Do you need a certain level of education or some sort of pre-course?
There's absolutely no academic prerequisites that are necessary for taking part in any of our courses. Some of our students are seasoned experts who maybe studied Hebrew many years ago in a seminary or a theological program of some kind in college, but the vast majority of our students are total novices who really don't have a penchant for language learning at all, but find our user-friendly method incredibly effective.
How powerful is it to literally read the Bible in its natural language of Hebrew? How does that compare to the English version?
You know, opening up the Bible in English is a very, very powerful experience that can be spiritually uplifting and can also be eye-opening from a historical perspective. But at the end of the day, what you're left with is a printed page with English words on it, and you always feel at the end of that experience that there's a kind of buffer or a sort of wall, a veil that separates you from the original. When you open up the text and you hear the words as they sound in the original Hebrew, what you're doing is following in a tradition that is not just 2,000 years old, but goes back time immemorial to the creation of the world. The world in the book of Genesis was created not in English translation of the King James Bible, but in the words of the Hebrew Bible just as it appears today. So I would say to you, it's an incredibly powerful experience because it is unrivaled in terms of its authenticity.
Jonathan, there are literally tens of millions of viewers watching this show. What message do you have for our viewing audience?
So, you know, right behind us, the city of Jerusalem, the old city where so much of our biblical history took place. I would counsel you, if this is a landscape that moves you and that your soul yearns for, I think that one of the most effective ways that you, from the comfort of your home, can get closer to the sanctity of this place is by checking out our website, the Israel Institute of Biblical Studies. Talk to one of our customer representatives and enroll yourself in one of our language courses. Learn biblical Hebrew and learn to read the Bible as it was always intended.
Thank you, Jonathan, for being on the show, and thank you for tuning in to Ask the Source. I'm your host, Josh Reinstein. Now back to the studio.
Up next, the return to Zion with Karen Hayesod.
Shalom and welcome to the Return to Zion with Keren Hayesod. I'm Eliezer Moody Sandberg, World Chairman of Keren Hayesod United Israel Appeal, the leading official fundraising organization for the State of Israel. Due to the rise of anti-Semitism, the Jews of France are coming to Israel like never before. You will now witness the fulfillment of biblical prophecy. God bless you from Jerusalem.
Bring my sons from afar and my daughters from the ends of the earth.
Both the departure from France and the reception at Ben Gurion Airport were colorful and festive events, full of hope for the future. The reception at Ben Gurion had the feel of a homecoming celebration, with flags and greetings, designed to convey to the Olim that they have come home and that everything possible would be done to guarantee a promising future for them and their children, and to ease their absorption. It began with the receiving Israeli ID cards already at the airport, and will continue with the help of a special program designed to streamline the bureaucratic process in the fields of employment, education, and housing.
אתם 206 עולים חדשים, אבל תחשבו כל אחד מכם סוגר מעגל של 2,000 שנה. עשרות דורות של סבים וסבתות שלכם התפללו, לחמו, חלמו, ואתם עשיתם את זה.
אתם זוכרים, לפני שבועיים היינו בפריז, נפגשנו שם. נתן שירנסקי, אני, מודי זנדברג וכולם. ומה אמרנו? אנחנו נקבל אתכם בבית. הבית משותף של כולנו, מדינת ישראל.
אני רוצה לברך אתכם בשם משפחת קרן היסוד העולמית. זה רגע מרגש עבורכם וגם עבורנו. המדינה הזאת שייכת לכולנו. לא משנה איפה אתה גר, כחלק מהעם היהודי, ישראל היא המולדת שלך. קרן היסוד מגייסת תרומות, ויחד עם הסוכנות היהודית, השותפה שלנו, ומשרד הקליטה, אנחנו עוזרים לחלום הציוני להתגשם.
The Jewish community of France is the largest in Europe, numbering 500,000 Jews.
On est des vrais sionistes, on adore Israël et que c'est pas par peur ou voilà, c'est vraiment par envie parce qu'on avait envie de vivre ici, on avait envie de vivre en Israël.
Je suis très émue et je réalise pas. J'ai du mal à réaliser parce qu'on préparait ça depuis des années.
Beaucoup de joie, une très grande émotion. J'ai énormément les larmes aux yeux. Et j'espère que tout le monde pourra réaliser ce rêve un jour.
Un projet de vie, ça fait depuis qu'on est mariés, c'était notre projet de monter en Israël.
Je trouve que c'est très impressionnant d'arriver dans un nouveau pays dans lequel on se dit on va arriver, on connaît entre guillemets personne, seul, et au final c'est impressionnant, parce qu'on n'est pas seul et c'est vraiment, c'est beau. Il n'y a que Israël pour faire ça, c'est vraiment... voilà.
Mesdames et messieurs, le Premier ministre de l'État d'Israël, M. Bibi Netanyahu.
Bonjour tout le monde, bienvenue en Israël. יש פה קהילה מפוארת של יהודים שעלו מצרפת, הם יחבקו אתכם ויקבלו אתכם, אבל כל העם יקבל אתכם. אנחנו אוהבים אתכם, אנחנו מעריכים את המעשה הציוני שעשיתם, שהוא גם מעשה אישי. הוא מעשה אישי גדול ומעשה לאומי גדול.
Come join Keren HaYesod in fulfilling biblical prophecy. Let's bless Israel together.
To donate and get information, call us at 1-800-505-1665 or visit our website at www.khisrael.org.
When I was a student, this was a few years ago, the thought that someday Israel would have peace with Jordan and Egypt was unthinkable. Israel had no relationship with China. China was a hostile country, actively supporting our enemies. India was a hostile country, supporting our enemies. Russia and 12 members of what was then called the Soviet bloc countries were actively supporting our enemies and had no relations with the Jewish state. 54 nations in Africa, most of them below the sub-Saharan line, cut off relations with Israel after the 1973-1974 Arab oil boycott. We had no relationships with Africa. Today, Israel is undergoing a profound revolution in its foreign policy. Our trade with India goes up at 30% Per year, we've now had a quarter of a century of relations with China. With India, one of our closest allies in the world. This year, India's president has visited Israel. India's prime minister has announced that he's come to visit Israel. India and China alone, more than half of humanity right there. Russia, a good friend, and some of our best friends in Europe are the former Eastern Bloc countries. Peace with Egypt, peace with Jordan, but not just that. A closer relationship between Israel and Sunni Arab states in the Persian and Arab Gulf, unprecedented in our history. The countries of Africa which once cut off relations with us because of the oil boycott are today lining up to restore those relationships. Everyone in the world wants what we have. Israel has two major things. Sometimes we joke and refer to them as TNT. We have technology. Israel is the world's leader in innovation. Everybody wants our technology. And we have amassed a critical amount of information and experience in fighting terror. And Islamic radical terror confronts so many countries in Africa, in Asia, and indeed worldwide. The world is opening up to Israel as never before. As a student many years ago, alas, I could not have imagined a situation where Israel could not only be embraced by more than half of humanity, but enjoy such close relations with our Sunni Arab nations. We are entering a new, and from my perspective, almost miraculous era in Israel's foreign policy.
Lift up your eyes and look around. All your children gather and come to you. The biblical prophecy is unfolding right before our very eyes. The people of Israel are returning to the Promised Land after 2,000 years of exile. But millions of Jews are still longing to come home. Anti-Semitism threatens many of the Jews. We must rescue them before the window of opportunity slams shut. Bless Israel by supporting Keren HaYesod United Israel Appeal, the leading official fundraising organization for the State of Israel. Together, we can fulfill the prophecy of the Bible.
Let us bless Israel together.
To donate and get information, call us at 1-800-505-1665 or visit our website at www.khisrael.org.
Please stay tuned for the ICJ Report from the International Christian Embassy, Jerusalem.
Today, we remember. Today, we pause the daily routine of life and remember the past. A past encompassing the horrors of genocide. Yom HaShoah, a day the people of Israel mourn and reflect on the lives unjustly taken in the Holocaust. It's on this day that survivors, staff, and family gather at the ICEJ Haifa Home for Holocaust Survivors to honor the memory of lives lost.
שמי שרה זמיר, ואני גרה כבר 6 שנים וחצי בבית חם לניצולי שואה בחיפה, ישראל. נולדתי בגרמניה, ברחנו בגלל הרדיפות של היהודים לבלגיה. נאצים באו גם, כבשו את בלגיה, אבי ואמי הובלו למחנות ומתו שם, וגם אחי היחיד. ואני ניצלתי על ידי משפחה בלגית קתולית שלקחה אותי וטיפלה בי כאילו הבת האמיתית שלה. אני חושבת שהיום הזה חשוב במיוחד שאנשים שלא ידעו על כך מכל העולם ילמדו מזה שדבר לא יקרה לעולם עוד פעם.
blessing. Support Holocaust survivors. Go to icej.org/Haifa.
Shalom, Chaya.
Yudi, you surprised me.
To see you.
I'm very, very happy to see you. Come on.
Chaya, I got a present for you. This is a very special blanket that came all the way from Canada, from Canadian friends who love you and want to make sure that you keep warm in the winter nights here.
Thank you very much for the present. I thank you, but I want to thank the people from Canada, what they thank for us, and they send us so good a present. This present is good for warm for the body, but more and more warm for the heart. Thank you, Judith. And thank you very, very much. And I thank you people from Canada too.
I want to thank all our ICJ partners from around the world. You're the ones who make this most beautiful home possible. And if you're not involved yet and you want to be a blessing, go and visit icj.org/Haifa and you will be blessed.
That's all for this edition of Israel Now News. I'm Yochanan El-Rom.
And I'm Erin Viner reporting from our studio in Jerusalem. Please join us again next week for all of your Israel updates.